All right, guys. Let's take a look at these two problems here. It's really one problem, but I've got it where you're going to identify two different graphs. Okay, so let's take a look at the first one. Which graph represents y equals 3/5 x plus 2? Okay, so when we're looking at an equation like this, we need to focus on two key things. We need to focus on this number right here. That number I just circled in red is the y-intercept. It's where the graph crosses the y-axis. So we'll label that y-int. Okay, y-int. Now that's 2. Okay, so let's look and see where these graphs cross the y-axis. Here, this graph crosses the y-axis at the origin, so it can't be graph number 1. Okay? Now look at graphs number 2 and 3. Both of these graphs cross the y-axis at 2. See, 1, 2. 1, 2. So now we have to look at the second number. The second number here, the number in front of the x, that number I just circled in blue, that's called the slope. Now, slope has several properties. One of the properties is it's either positive or it's negative. So look at this number. Is this a positive or negative number? Well, it's 3/5. In other words, there's no negative sign, so it's positive 3/5. Now, here's something to remember. Any positive slope is going to move up as you travel from left to right. Okay, so just think about how you read a page of text. You read from left to right. That's how you read a graph, from left to right. So let's read this graph from left to right. This red line goes down from left to right. This green line goes down from left to right. So these two graphs have negative slopes because they go down from left to right. And we want a graph with a positive slope. So if we look here, we've got this upward sloping line. Okay? Now, take a look at the numbers themselves. 3/5. That means that the graph rises 3, goes up 3, and runs 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to the right. So what you do is, if we think the graph is graph number 3, come over here and see the y-intercept is at 2, check. We have a positive slope, so it's moving up from left to right, check. And let's check our slope to make sure that we have the right slope. It should, starting from this y-intercept here at 2, it should go up 3 over 5, and we should be back on the line. Let's see if that happens. Okay, so starting here, I go up 1, up 2, up 3. Now I'm going to run 5 to the right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I'm back on the line. Okay, so that's how you know that graph number 3 is the graph y equals 3/5 x plus 2. So we'll write that here. Y equals 3/5 x plus 2. Good. Okay, now let's do the second one. Y equals negative 5x. The very first thing we did when we did this equation here was we looked at that number, the y-intercept, and that told us where the graph crossed the y-axis, the vertical axis, okay? This time, there isn't one. Whenever you see one like this, where it's y equals something x and then that's it, you can assume that it says plus 0. Okay? So we're going to write in plus 0 right here. And let's circle that. 0 is the y-intercept of this graph. Okay? So that means we're looking for a graph that crosses the y-axis at 0. So if you look here at this green graph, it crosses at positive 2, the y-axis, okay? Over here, this blue graph, it crosses at positive 2. So it can't be y equals negative 5x plus 0, since we need it to cross right there at what some people call the origin. So now look here at this graph here. This graph crosses the y-axis right through the origin at 0, 0. So its y-intercept is 0. That's good. So we think it's graph number 1. But let's look here at the slope. The slope is negative 5. Okay? The slope is negative 5. Now, that means we're looking for a graph, because it's negative, from left to right, we want it to go down. Okay? We want it to go down from left to right. So this one goes down from left to right, but it had the wrong y-intercept. It had a y-intercept of 2. Look here at graph number 1. It goes down from left to right. Good. It has a y-intercept of 0. Good. Okay? You look over here, this one goes up from left to right, so that has a positive slope. We don't care about that. So now we have 2 reasons to believe that graph number 1 represents y equals negative 5x. Okay, but let's find that third reason. Let's actually look at the slope. The slope was negative 5. Now, whenever you have a whole number slope, a whole number like negative 5, you need to write that number over 1. Okay? And the top number is the rise, or in this case, the fall. Okay? Because it's a negative number, we could say it goes down or it fall. And the bottom number is the run. So anytime you have a whole number, by whole number I mean it could be negative or positive, an integer value, over, just write it over 1. Okay, so we're looking for something to start at 0 on the y-axis, so we can go down 5 over 1, and we'll be back on the line. So look over here at this graph here. We start at 0, we go down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, over 1 to the right, and we are back on the line, okay? So for all 3 of those reasons, the y-intercept, the positivity or negativity of the slope value, and the rise over run or fall over run, y equals negative 5x is associated with graph number 1, the red graph. So let's write that in. Y equals negative 5x. Okay, well, I hope this has been helpful, and make sure you tune in to future videos and subscribe to the channel so that you can continue to learn algebra. Thank you.